I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb.
In his State of the Union address, President Trump is taking direct aim at New York's new abortion law, the battle over the name of a Brooklyn street, and why Catholics are fighting the change. New criticism from state prosecutors about how the church is handling the clergy's sex abuse crisis.
This is nuts. We're talking about the largest Catholic fraternal organization in the world being called an extremist organization.
In minutes, Archbishop Joseph Kurtz will be there to talk about what Senator Ben Sasse is calling nuts, political religious litmus test. The news starts right now.
Walls save lives.
President Trump declaring in his State of the Union speech that the southern border wall will be built.
Let us work together to build a culture that cherishes innocent life.
The pro-life president also pushing for an end to late-term abortions. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The president took on a number of major issues in his speech last night to a joint session of Congress, none more important to Catholics than the fight to protect the sanctity of life. Currents News' Michelle Powers is here to break down what he said. Michelle.
Liz, last night marked the first time in any of President Trump's 3 joint addresses to Congress he mentioned abortion. The man who once described himself as very pro-choice threw away his past opinions with fierce and explicitly religious language, all in favor of the right to life.
All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God.
In his State of the Union address Tuesday night, President Trump received a standing ovation from Republicans for condemning recent efforts to expand state abortion laws. The other side of Congress remained in their seats, baffling Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
It's just awful. You know, you're murdering babies.
We had such a great country, and now it's, I don't know. I'm getting very discouraged from it.
The president went on to criticize New York's recently passed Reproductive Health Act that hits close to home for these churchgoers.
Lawmakers in New York cheered with delight upon the passage of legislation that would allow a baby to be ripped from the mother's womb moments from birth.
Congratulations to Bill Sasse.
Fiercely opposed by both Cardinal Timothy Dolan and Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, the act declares abortion on demand at any moment in a pregnancy up to birth a fundamental right.
These are living, feeling, beautiful babies who will never get the chance to share their love and their dreams with the world.
Catholics say they are pleased the president is echoing their concerns in the State of the Union.
I'm going to watch it again. It was magnificent.
But many worry it may be too late. Another recent bill in Virginia would have allowed a woman to request an abortion when she's about to give birth.
The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable.
The governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, recently defended this bill, now tabled, saying if the family desired, a discussion with physicians could take place deciding the newborn's fate.
There could be no greater contrast to the beautiful image of a mother holding her infant child than the chilling displays our nation saw in recent days.
Following the high-profile debates in New York and Virginia, states including Rhode Island, Vermont, and New Mexico will all consider abortion expansion proposals in the coming months.
I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb.
But some politicians are critical of the president's pro-life stance. Governor Andrew Cuomo is accusing him of shamelessly courting the religious right to win votes.
Anyone who would murder the unborn, they will belong in hell, because I believe it's premeditated murder.
An editorial in today's New York Times, Cuomo writes, "As a Roman Catholic, I am intimately familiar with the strongly held views of the church. Still, I do not believe that religious values should drive political positions."
Now, political analysts are speculating that in the current environment where late-term abortions are up for debate, it could be a winning issue for the president. Whether a person is a Trump fan or not, if they are pro-life and religious, a vote to ensure the life of the unborn is something they may get behind, Liz.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much for that report. Now, if you want to contact Governor Cuomo directly and let him know your thoughts about the abortion law, here's his number, 212-681-4580. His office has responded to our open invitation for him to appear on this program, saying they will let us know if the governor is able to participate. The border wall, a new Korean summit, and women in Congress were some of the other big issues the president took on in his State of the Union. Karen Kaifa has more from Capitol Hill.
On a contentious Capitol Hill, the president preached unity.
The state of our union is strong.
To a divided Congress.
The only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations.
With Democratic Speaker Nancy Pelosi over his shoulder and scores of newly elected women watching in front of him.
Don't sit yet. You're like this. We also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
Many critical of the president's demand for border wall funding that led to the longest government shutdown in history.
Walls work and walls save lives.
During the Democratic response, former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams challenged Trump.
America is made stronger by the presence of immigrants, not walls.
Still, President Trump touched on bipartisan topics like infrastructure projects, cutting the cost of prescription drugs, and ending HIV in the U.S.
Together, we will defeat AIDS in America and beyond.
Trump also touted his foreign policy agenda.
Chairman Kim and I will meet again on February 27th and 28th in Vietnam.
Now, the president and Congress have until February 15th to work together to keep the government funded.
So let's work together, compromise, and reach a deal that will truly make America safe.
On Capitol Hill, I'm Karen Kaifa.
Following the White House decision to bail out of the nuclear arms treaty with Russia, a top Catholic cleric is expressing concern. The Reagan-era treaty was signed in 1987 between the Soviet Union and America, banning intermediate-range land-based missiles. Archbishop Timothy Broglio heads up the Archdiocese for Military Services. He says the move to scrap the agreement is a bad one and could spark a new arms race between the U.S. and Russia. Now that the State of the Union is over, Congress is racing against the clock to cut a deal about the border wall, as both sides are still in a stalemate.
I believe at the end of the day we should get this done legislatively, and I'm looking forward to making that happen.
If the president stays out of it, we will get a deal.
To build the wall, President Trump could bypass Congress and declare a national emergency at the border. There's a brewing controversy tonight over the name of a street in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn. City officials want to honor a man with a documented history of anti-Catholic behavior. Parishioners of St. Peter Claver Church are strongly opposed to that move. Currents News' Emily Druby has this exclusive report.
Parishioners, over 100, fighting for their church's history, standing their ground on what they consider to be holy ground.
We want Claver Place to mean something.
The people in the pews of St. Peter Claver Church, Brooklyn's first parish for Black Catholics, furious when they heard about a proposal that would co-name their church's street Claver Place after a Black activist.
It cannot be done.
Jitu Wayusi, formerly named Les Campbell, was an educator and community leader who had a key role in the Ocean Hill-Brownsville conflict that brought national changes to community control of public education. He also co-founded The East, a famous cultural institution on Claver Place that focused on Black nationalism.
And I think his legacy will live on in our community for many, many generations to come.
The co-naming proposal brought to Bedford-Stuyvesant's community board by Wayusi's son as a way to honor the Brooklyn activist who died in 2013. So why are some firmly against this? Well, St. Peter Claver parishioners who knew Wayusi personally claim he was anti-Catholic and racist.
How he treated the parishioners, how he treated the community, how he treated the residents. It was full of bigotry, it was full of hatred.
In letters to the community board, parishioners and local residents detailed what they called bad behavior, writing things like he, quote, disrespected our priest and the nuns who taught our children, calling them names like white devils. Also saying things like, quote, playtime outside was interrupted by chants and harassment towards children because we were considered light skin. In testimonies, parishioners detail incidents where Wayusi and his followers disrupted church services with a megaphone, stopped brides from getting to their wedding, screamed and cursed at children, parishioners, and nuns. They described him as violent, extreme, and constantly at odds with the church.
To have Claver Place codenamed after someone who was anti-Catholic and, very much caused a lot of heartache to the Catholic community is really just was unacceptable to the parishioners.
Parishioners gave these letters to the community board and spoke out at a June board meeting, but the resolution still passed unanimously.
We weren't really heard.
The co-naming request now in the hands of New York's City Council. Parishioners say they would back off if it was moved to any other street.
Brooklyn is 71 square miles. If you want to put his name on any one of those 71 square miles, be our guest.
But Wayusi supporters and friends say since Claver Place is the home of the East, along with a school and a festival started by Wayusi, it has to be there.
That's where it all started. And that's why we have to preserve it.
The co-naming is being reviewed by City Council. Parishioners say, for now, it's in God's hands. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, Emily Druby, Currents News.
There is new criticism tonight over how the U.S. Church is handling the clerical sex abuse crisis. Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro is blaming the church for not doing enough to address the scandal. He released the state grand jury report that claimed at least 1,000 children were abused by priests over a period of 7 decades. Former Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan is saying the church hasn't put in place policies to fix the crisis. Pope Francis will hold a worldwide summit on sex abuse later this month. New Mexico is close to passing an abortion law similar to the one in New York that would erase virtually all restrictions. The state's bishops are condemning the legislation. In a statement, they say parents will not be involved in their minor daughter's abortion, and it strips away conscious protection for doctors and other medical professionals. There's a lot more news headed your way. An exclusive interview with Archbishop Joseph Kurtz on the growing trend of religious litmus tests for public officials. A war council in Washington, leaders vowing to do what it takes to beat a terror enemy. Plus, Pope Francis this morning about his groundbreaking trip to the United Arab Emirates. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back.
One of my colleagues on the Judiciary Committee called the Knights of Columbus an extremist organization. Huh?
Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska expressing disbelief that a nominee for the federal judiciary were being questioned about his membership in the Knights of Columbus. Senator Sasse would go on to pass a resolution stating Knights of Columbus membership could not disqualify a nominee for any public office. But the idea that the Catholic charitable organization could prevent someone from carrying out governmental duties has caused outrage. Bishop Joseph Kurtz of Louisville chairs the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Committee of Religious Liberty. He joins us now to talk about a religious litmus test for judicial nominees. Your Excellency, thank you so much for being with us.
Liz, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Archbishop, you sent a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee about your concerns. What are those concerns, and have you heard back from them?
Liz, yes, indeed, I have. And also, I might say that I signed a similar letter with people of faith and people of conscience from various religious backgrounds who echoed the same concern. My concern is very simple, and that is there's a constitutionality to the ability for someone to be able to participate as a citizen, to run for office, and to bring their convictions to their life. America has been built on those voices of faith and voices of conscience. And so for the Senate Judiciary Committee, even to drift is something that is of utmost concern for us, and it drew me to write that letter.
Archbishop, bottom line, could church teachings prohibit a public official from serving properly?
No, the Constitution is very clear on that. In other words, it's not the church teaching, it's the person of faith conviction that comes to serve. And let's make no mistake about it, in the United States, thank God, we do not impose our values on people. We propose what's good for the common good, but also in a way that takes into account what are deeply held beliefs.
Archbishop, Senator Sass speaks to your concerns. Let's take a listen.
This is nuts. We're talking about the largest Catholic fraternal organization in the world being called an extremist organization, and a nominee for the federal bench being asked if he would resign from this organization so that he could serve without the appearance of bias.
Archbishop, the senator calls it nuts. You say the very idea of calling out the Knights is appalling. Tell us more about that.
Well, it is appalling. I mean, anyone who knows the Knights of Columbus, and I hope the terrible events will bring to light the great goodness and contributions of the Knights of Columbus. Great citizens of the United States, over 2 million participants who are active members, literally billions of dollars of charity that are being given to others. I think the Knights of Columbus and charitable giving go hand in hand. And so it's ludicrous to think that somehow someone's association with such a fine organization can somehow be twisted.
And to be clear, Archbishop, you're not only speaking about an anti-Catholic bias, you object to questions about any faith.
That's exactly right. And in fact, I think we have come to see that many times a bias against other religious groups, whether it be Jewish or Muslim, Catholic, other Christian organizations, that hurts not just the religion or the person, it hurts the fabric of our nation.
Your Excellency, this isn't the only time a nominee has been questioned on personal religious beliefs. Let's listen to Senator Cory Booker questioning Naomi Rao, who President Trump nominated to replace Brett Kavanaugh on the U.S. Court of Appeals.
Do you think gay relationships are immoral? Do you personally believe that gay relations?
No, I do not.
You do not believe that?
No.
Do you believe they're a sin?
Senator, you know, my personal views on any of these subjects are things I would put to one side, and I would faithfully follow.
So you're not willing to say here that whether you believe it is sinful for two men to be married. You're not willing to comment on that?
You know, Senator, no.
Your Excellency, did he go too far?
He did. He absolutely did. That senator is moving into the religious realm and basically saying that if you are a person of faith, we're going to disqualify you from serving. This exclusion of someone because of their faith is itself going against the Constitution and really everything that we stand for as a nation. It's really a bad road to go down.
Archbishop Kurtz, thank you so much for your perspective and insight on this. We will obviously be checking back with you just to see the progress of these issues with your office.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you. The war against ISIS is not over yet, and a war council met this morning in Washington to develop a battle plan. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo led a global coalition of leaders to map out plans to overcome the terrorists. The meeting comes after President Trump announced that he would be withdrawing U.S. troops from Syria. Pompeo assured the group that the fight against ISIS is far from over.
ISIS remains a menace, one that is our generation's responsibility to stop. President Trump's announcement that U.S. troops will be withdrawing from Syria is not the end of America's fight.
Pompeo telling the world leaders that the drawdown of U.S. troops is tactical and not a change in the mission to defeat ISIS. While strategy is developed in Washington, on the battlefield, U.S.-backed forces are getting ready for what they hope is the final fight against the Islamic State. Ben Wiedemann reports.
Fighters are loading up for the final battle against what's left of the so-called Islamic State, now holed up in a tiny corner of land in eastern Syria. With coalition air support, the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have driven ISIS out of all but a sliver of territory along the Euphrates River. The active fighting stopped a while ago, these soldiers say. So the soldiers here have told us it's been quiet for the last at least week or so. But just at the moment the soldier was telling me that, there was an incoming round landing right over there. So quiet, I guess in this instance, is a relative term. Adnan Afrin is commanding the anti-ISIS forces at the front and warns against assuming the war is almost over. ISIS isn't finished yet, he tells me. It's still in this area. It's still fighting. It still has sleeper cells in the areas we've liberated. When ISIS was at its height, one of its supporters' favorite slogans was "The Islamic State remaining and expanding." That now seems like a very long time ago. As the Islamic State collapses, they're leaving behind their spare change, so to speak. This, a 5 dirham coin, now not worth anything. Worthless, like the debris of their utopian delusion. Ben Wiedemann, Bahrouz, Eastern Syria.
Now that he's back home at the Vatican, Pope Francis is talking more about his landmark mission to the Arabian Peninsula. During his general audience this morning, the Holy Father spoke of his journey to the United Arab Emirates with the goal of strengthening ties between Christians and Muslims. He pointed to an important document on human fraternity that he and the Grand Imam signed together.
Nel quale insieme affermiamo la comune vocazione di tutti gli uomini e le donne ad essere fratelli in quanto figli e figlie di Dio. Condanniamo ogni forma di violenza, specialmente quella rivestita di motivazioni religiose.
Francis also said that although Christians and Muslims are different, we share common values like respect for life, family, and education. Still to come on Currents News, eye-opening news about immigration and how it will change the country. A mystery after a huge cross washes ashore on a Florida beach. We'll be right back. There's news tonight about immigration and its impact on the future population of America. The Census Bureau is predicting immigrants will account for nearly all of the growth over the next 4 decades. Experts are projecting there will be 404 million people living in the U.S. by 2060. Their figures show that almost all of the newcomers, 75 million, will be immigrants, legal and illegal. They will account for about 95% of the nation's future growth. There's a big mystery tonight over what washed up onto a Florida beach. Could it be a sign from God? This 20-foot wooden cross emerged from the ocean in the Fort Lauderdale area over the weekend, leaving beachgoers with more questions than answers. A group noticed the cross and dragged it up from the water's edge. Some even speculated that it could have come from Puerto Rico as residents prayed for their lives after Hurricane Maria. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you so much for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.